Welcome to the Stumbling Spirit, contemplations on the path of resilience. Whether you realize it or not, you are resilient. It's your birthright. As you take in your next breath, know this truth. It's not only about your capacity to overcome difficult situations, but it's about your courage to do the necessary work to heal, learn, grow, and move forward. What you gain is invaluable wisdom. And it's through these hard stumbles in life that we often discover a new purpose that aligns with our spirit. My name is Fabio da Silva Fernandez, Reiki Master, Mindfulness Coach, and Mystical Explorer. Join me as the Stumbling Spirit podcast highlights the lives of extraordinary people like you, sharing transformative stories and beneficial practices of resilience to guide you on your wellness journey. Amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, or ALS, affects more than 200,000 people globally. In Canada alone, approximately 4,000 people live with this disease. Also known as Lou Gehrig's or motor neuron disease, ALS is a progressive neurodegenerative disorder that disrupts the transmission of brain signals to muscles throughout the body, rendering them inactive over time. While there is no cure for ALS, there is promising research and emerging treatments to unlock this disease and improve the quality of life for people with this terminal condition. With the help of voice cloning technology, Alan Braude is here to talk about his life with ALS and share his message of hope. It's a pleasure to welcome to the show my friend, Alan Braude. Hello, Alan. It's great to have you on the show.
Hi, Fabio. Thanks so much for inviting me to share my experiences living with ALS.
Thank you. Now, before we begin, I just want to mention that I got my stats from ALS Canada. I also wanted to share with my listeners that I typically don't share questions in advance to guests, but in this case, I did share my questions with Alan so that he could prepare his answers on his device. So I wanted to begin with this technology that you're using, Alan. Can you talk a little bit about this voice cloning technology and how it allows you to communicate?
To communicate, I am using an app on my phone called Speech Assistant that converts text into sound. The app uses my voice as it sounded before my ALS symptoms began. 11 labs can create a professional voice clone if you have at least 30 minutes of recordings of you speaking. That's free for anyone with ALS.
Wow, that's really incredible. I think it's going to be helpful to a lot of people that are unable to speak, to be able to communicate to others in their own voice or in a rendering of their own voice. Can you describe your form of ALS?
I have bulbar onset ALS, which is when the motor neurons are destroyed in the cortical bulbar area of the brain and brainstem. That's the area of the brain that controls the face, head, and neck muscles, including the lips, jaw, tongue, and throat. This makes it progressively harder to talk, swallow, and breathe.
What were your early warning signs and symptoms that made you seek medical attention and get diagnosed?
The early signs were a change in my speech, chiefly my inability to pronounce certain sounds, including R, K, and hard G, as in go.
What ALS symptoms are most challenging to you?
All ALS symptoms are challenging, but what is most challenging is the loss of independence. Because my ALS first affected my speech and swallowing but didn't affect my arms and legs, I was fully independent. The disease has begun to affect my arms and legs, especially my right arm, hand, and shoulder. I'm still independent, but sooner than later I will lose full independence, which will be challenging.
Can you walk us through a typical day with ALS?
A typical day begins with waking up and taking medication through my feeding tube because I can't swallow medicine. Then I wait an hour before eating breakfast. Because I have difficulty swallowing, I eat an all puree food diet that is tastier than you might expect. After breakfast, I take a vitamin D pill through the feeding tube. Then I get ready for work, and just before work begins, I take a medicine to reduce saliva. Because of swallowing difficulties, I don't naturally swallow saliva unless I'm reclining or lying down. Since I need to sit up for work, I take medication that is injected into a catheter that delivers it just under the skin. I work at home from 9 a.m. until 1 p.m., taking a break around 10:30 for some medicine. After work, I have lunch. In the afternoon, I do errands and catch up on emails. Often I will go for a walk with a friend. In the evening, I take more medicine, wait for an hour, and have dinner. I usually watch a movie with dinner. Then I get ready for bed by getting my BiPAP machine ready, which rests my breathing muscles while I sleep. It's like a CPAP machine, but instead of a continuous stream of air at the same pressure, a BiPAP machine has two levels of pressure, a stronger one for the inhale and a weaker one for the exhale. That's why it's a BiPAP, with the bi being the same as the bi in bilingual. Just before bed, I take more medication, including the anti-saliva medicine, put on the BiPAP mask, connect to the machine, press start, and go to dreamland.
You know, what's incredible in listening to what you just shared is that despite the fact that you have had to modify your routine to accommodate your condition, to ensure that you're getting the proper medication and food, that you're living a full life. I wanted to ask you, how are you doing at this moment?
I'm okay and working to stay positive.
How have you internally processed your ALS diagnosis?
I'm taking an approach from a book a friend gave me. Hope for the best, plan for the rest.
You recently did a clinical trial. I'm wondering if you could talk about the trial itself.
To be part of a clinical trial, I wanted two things: that the medication must not be a pill you have to swallow, and that the trial addresses the genetic mutation that caused my ALS. The trial medication was injected into my spinal fluid, and the drug being tested is meant to counteract my genetic mutation. Let me tell you a bit more about the genetic mutation. For most people diagnosed with ALS, there is no known genetic link. What these people have is called sporadic ALS. For 15% of people with ALS, there is a known genetic cause. These people have what's called familial ALS because there is usually a family history of ALS or other neurological conditions. The genetic mutation I have is known as the C9 or F72 expansion, which can cause ALS, frontotemporal dementia, and in some cases, Parkinson's disease. While there is no known history of ALS in my family, there is a history of dementia. My late mother had dementia, as did a couple of her cousins.
Can you talk to us a little bit about the medical team, the medical supports that you have at the moment?
I have a great medical team at the Sunnybrook Hospital ALS clinic. My team includes a nurse, an occupational therapist, a speech-language pathologist, a dietitian, a respiratory therapist, a social worker, neurologists, and a palliative care doctor. I have an appointment with the clinic team every 3 months in person and can email if something comes up.
What are the main treatments, services, and aids that have improved your quality of life with ALS?
There is no cure for ALS, but there are 2 approved medications that are supposed to slow down disease progression. I take them both. I take other medications for specific symptoms. In my case, that's mainly to reduce my saliva production, and I take something to thin my secretions so they are easier to cough them out. I also do exercises and stretching. Recently, I got an injection and did physiotherapy to reduce pain and improve the range of motion in my right shoulder. I also have a feeding tube. Because I have trouble swallowing, all the medicine and vitamins I take are taken through the feeding tube. I also take coconut water and a nutritional supplement through the feeding tube. I use a BiPAP machine to help my breathing while I'm sleeping, as the breathing muscles work hardest while you sleep.
You are Canadian, and your partner is American, so you've gone back and forth between Canada and the US. What differences have you noticed in ALS research, treatments, and advocacy between both countries?
Can't fully speak to that as I have had all my treatments in Canada, but I did have an appointment with a well-known neurologist in the US, and I did notice that she was more willing to prescribe some treatment that are still being tested. That's not the case in Canada, but the big difference is that we have a public healthcare system and the US has a private healthcare system. For example, one of the medications I take is very expensive, over $100,000 a year. My work insurance covers only part of it, but the Ontario government covers the rest, minus a small deductible. I am not worried that I'll be bankrupt by medical expenses since it's mostly free. I'm not sure it's the same for people south of the border.
What improvements would you like to see in Canada with respect to ALS in terms of research, treatments, and advocacy?
It would be great if more research could be funded in Canada. But ALS is still considered a rare disease, so it can be a challenge to get all the funding needed. I would also like Canada to have an orphan drug program for rare diseases like they have in the United States and the European Union. An orphan drug program provides incentives to create drugs or biological treatments for rare diseases and streamlines the process of getting tested and approved.
I really do like that idea of the orphan drug program. That would be amazing if that could happen. What are you most excited about in terms of current research to find a cure for ALS?
CRISPR gene editing is the research I'm most excited about. Because my ALS is caused by a genetic mutation, I hope that a treatment to correct the mutation will become available. CRISPR has already been successful in human cells in a lab, but it hasn't yet been tested in humans.
It would be great if that CRISPR technology can develop to the point that it can actually cure ALS and other neurodegenerative diseases. To my listeners, what are your thoughts on my chat with Alan Braude? I'd love to hear from you. Just DM me on Blue Sky at thestumblingspirit.bsky.social. How important has your community of support, meaning friends and family, how important have they been in your journey through ALS?
The support from my community has been incredible and super helpful. I can only eat pure 8 foods, and so many people have been cooking for me. I've been fortunate to have so much support, and the biggest support is from my husband, Ken. He's been fantastic.
Ken is amazing. One of the things that I've noticed in general for anybody that's going through a disease, a condition, a health crisis, is that a huge differentiator is having friends and family around them, their partner around them to support them emotionally and advocating for them in many different ways. And the fact that you've been able to bring together a community just by virtue of who you are, you're a wonderful person, but to have people help you with food, with their presence, with joining you for walks, with watching a movie with you, all of these different things, I'm sure has helped your well-being. And so I just wanted to ask you, like, obviously these would be highs for you, but I'm wondering whether you could share a little bit more about the highs and lows of living with ALS.
The highs are all the support I receive and continue to receive. The low was definitely the diagnosis. Being told that you have a terminal incurable disease is super challenging. As well, everyone is different, and while there's data that indicates what most people experience and how long they have left to live, but there are outliers, so there's nothing definite about how slow or quickly the disease progresses in each person. Not knowing that is also challenging.
I can only imagine what this experience has been like for you. From my standpoint, I just want to say that you've navigated your life with ALS with so much grace, courage, determination, and most of all, positivity. So I'm wondering how important your outlook on life has been in managing through ALS.
Thanks, Fabio. That's very kind of you. I've always been a pretty positive person. I try not to worry about what I can't control and focus on what I can do to make a difference. I also try not to focus on achieving huge things or fulfilling a bucket list, but focus on living each day. And I don't punish myself if I spend time playing games on my phone. If that brings me happiness, why worry?
What message of hope do you want to share for those people who have ALS?
My message to others with ALS is allow people to help you. Most people want to help, and giving people who care about you the opportunity to help you benefits you both.
What is one thing that you would like to share with the world about ALS?
To the world, I want people to know that ALS is not a one-size-fits-all disease, so what helped one person may not help someone else. As well, it's best to leave advice on treatments to the experts.
What does resilience mean to you?
To me, resilience is being able to adjust to changes in your life and focusing on the positive while adjusting to change.
This season, I'm exploring how compassion influences or can influence resilience. So I'm wondering whether you have any thoughts on this.
I think it's very important to be compassionate with yourself. Change is difficult, and punishing yourself doesn't help you. Being compassionate with yourself, allow yourself to feel what you feel without judgment, and focus what is in your control. That will build resilience. And working on being compassionate to yourself will help you be compassionate when people you care about are facing a difficult change.
What are your practices of resilience?
For me, my resilience comes from trying to focus on what is in my control. It's also allowing me to have bad moments without that taking over. Long before I had ALS, people told me they admired my resilience and my ability to stay positive when bad things happen, such as losing my job. So focusing on what is in my control helps me navigate my ALS and remain positive even as the illness progresses.
How can people best support ALS research and advocacy?
The best thing people can do is find an organization that is helping people with ALS. And if you are able, make a donation or sign a petition.
Thank you so much, Alan, for coming on my show and for sharing your inspirational story and insights about ALS. I know that your voice will help many people living with this disease and help their families as well. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Fabio, for this opportunity.
To learn more about how to support ongoing ALS research, contact your local ALS nonprofit organization. The International Alliance of ALS MND Associations might be a good place to start. Their website is als-mnd.org. In Canada, you can reach out to the ALS Society of Canada at als.ca and ALS Action Canada at alsactioncanada.org. Thank you for listening to The Stumbling Spirit, Contemplations on the Path of Resilience. This is Fabio da Silva Fernandez. Join me again for another episode of transformative stories and beneficial practices to guide you on your wellness journey. If you wish, you can follow and DM me on Blue Sky at thestumblingspirit.bsky.social. Until next time, take a deep breath and another step forward on your path of resilience.